Hey everyone, Catch 'em All Collectibles here. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I am 99% confident Pokemon will make my children millionaires. That is not clickbait. This is a real video. I will show you a spreadsheet very shortly on the very simple math behind how Pokemon will turn my kids into millionaires in their lifetimes. It likely won't be the way that you expect, but let's jump right into it. So I've made videos before talking about the biggest mistake people make. And the biggest mistake people make, well, there's a lot of them, but one of the biggest ones is not doing things properly as a business. When you become a business, whether it's sole prop, LLC, S corporation, whatever works best for you, determined by you and your CPA. So many doors are opened. One door that I'm actively using as we speak, my kids are on the payroll. I do business in Pokemon. The amount of times that I say something that is very clearly, easily, demonstrably valid and legitimate by IRS rules. And it's like, oh, you pay your kids on the payroll? How do you do that? Dan, you write off business travel? Dan, you write off business use of your home? It feels like that's illegal. It feels like you shouldn't be able to do that. Let me open your eyes to what can be done. I do business in Pokemon. My kids help me sort packs. They help me break down products. They help me pop the bubbles from the bubble wrap. We were just doing that in the garage the other day when I receive packages with a lot of bubble wrap. They can materially participate legitimately inside of the business. For the sake of this video, I am using a random salary of $250 a month. Their real salary is reasonable, is discussed between me and my accountant, what their job is, and it's reasonable, but it's not $250 a month. This is just a demonstration of how, if it was that, and if all that money was shoveled into a Roth IRA between the ages of 5 and 18, so between the ages that they were likely under my roof, likely participating materially at some point in some regard in the business. So yeah, this is just a very simple calculator that I threw together in Google Sheets, and it has the age, it has the contribution amount, and it has the total balance by year. So first year, whether it's all paid in January, December, like the math changes a little bit, but the way that I have this compounded annually, not compounded continuously. But the beauties of compounding, Warren Buffett called it, I believe it was Warren Buffett called it, the eighth wonder of the world. Or maybe that was Albert Einstein or someone. I paused very quickly so that I could tell you it was in fact Albert Einstein. Warren Buffett probably echoed it at some point. But anyways, 3,000 a year. Whether it's January 1st, whether it's the birthday, however it happens, or if it's actually monthly, if this is going into a Roth IRA monthly, it's better because you're getting that compounding more. And yes, I know not every year will the stock market go up exactly 7%. Sometimes it's up 20%, sometimes it's down 40% in a given year. But historically speaking, one big key too, I put the real interest rate in bold. Oh, so for anyone who doesn't know what that means, real inflation adjusted. Hey Dan, the S&P 500, historically speaking, has actually returned closer to 10%. I know, but inflation has historically averaged something around 3%. So nominal interest rate minus inflation rate equals real interest rate, 7%. So Dan, you say this is going to amount to $1 million someday in their lifetime. $1 million 40 years from now isn't $1 million today. I know that, but I am doing in real terms. I'm not doing in nominal terms. Inflation is accounted for in these calculations. So a little bit of background on the calculations themselves. But 3,000, second year becomes 6,420. It will never be, just like Pokemon investments that go up X amount compound annual growth rate, it will never be clean, straight, consistently easy. You can't guarantee that they'll have these amounts at every date threshold on this chart. But this is how the math works out overall. And 100 plus years of stock market returns, historical returns do not. Okay, enough disclaimers, Dan. Continue on. So by the time they turn 18, I have it set up. So there is a box here, and I should have these highlighted. Like these are the boxes that you can change something in. So I have it set up so that you could continue contributions. In my mind, me 2025 Dan today, with a 5 and a 7-year-old, a nearly 5 and a 7-year-old child, I like to envision a future where they, like, I can't believe my dad gave me this big head start. I can't believe, well, it's Not even just me giving it to them, it's them earning it. It's them earning it and having the money invested for them. So my thought, my hope is that they turn 18, they should have approximately $71,000, amounting from what was only $42,000 worth of contributions over a 13-year span a 14-year span, 5 to 18 inclusive, a 14-year span of contributions, $42,000. Not quite doubled, but nearly doubled in that time frame. In Pokemon, it's like, that long of time, and you're not even doubling, Dan. What are you doing? What are you doing to your poor kids? Trust me, you'll see when we get there. But $72,000 at 18, graduating high school, maybe, and hopefully this would be the case. They could theoretically Roth IRA. They couldn't access all $72,000 without penalty, but $42,000, the contributions of that would be theoretically accessible if they wanted to get married and have money for the wedding, if they wanted to go travel, if they wanted to blow it on a car, which hopefully won't be the case, down payment on their first house, what have you, whatever it may be. That money could be accessible through the Roth IRA. I can do videos on that down the line. I can answer in the comments below if you have any questions on any of this. But my hope would be that they turn on the savings. 18, go get maybe start streaming for Catch 'em All Collectibles, maybe get their own separate job. Maybe they hate Pokemon by then after earning $250 a month for the Roth IRA through the years. And if they decided, I'm not going to save another penny, what happens? People that know the rule of thumb. So you take the interest rate and 70 divided by the interest rate equals the doubling time, roughly, very roughly. So 70 divided by 7 is 10. Every 10 years, this amount should double if you don't add another penny to it. So at 28, it's nearly double. It's nearly double, 72 to 142. At 38, yes, we nearly doubled again at 141. Follow along with the math, double again at 58. My children are likely going to have higher than 67 years old as their full retirement date for Social Security, yada, yada. Social Security might not exist in any form by the time they get there. I don't account for it in any of my personal projections. But through the first 14 years, $3,000 a year, $250 a month, through those $72,000 in contributions, they've become millionaires at 57 years old. They've nearly doubled up on that at 67 years old. They have $2 million that they accumulated in real terms. Like, what will $2 million buy you today? And maybe inflation and maybe housing and maybe certain things outpace that. But I think the concept of the video is understood. And one thing I'm going to do, I mentioned here, what about sealed Pokemon? Hey, Dan, instead of putting away $250 a month in that crappy S&P 500 you're talking about, VT Sax, VU, what are we talking about? Destined Rivals, Surging Sparks, whatever the latest and greatest set is. I'm going to talk about that in a future video. It could substantially outperform, but it doesn't compound. It doesn't reinvest dividends. It has risks. You need to store it. You need to insure it. I'm not going to cover everything right now, but that will be an entire future video. I've run through the scenario on what it looks like in just traditional S&P 500, VT Sax, things like that. And this is the plain and simple math. It's slow. It's boring. I get it. The buckets are not as sexy. They're not as exciting as all this stuff. But where we're talking about the buckets, like this to me is step 4. And I'm doing step 4 for my kids passively in the background. And again, these numbers are kind of fictional, but whatever their real numbers are, there's room. I mean, 5, 6, 7 years old, they're not doing as much as they theoretically could be when they're 8, 10, 12, 15. So these numbers could easily be $250 a month and then an additional $500, $750 in their pocket as spending money on top of the Roth IRA contributions. But yeah, that is the shockingly simple math behind turning my kids into millionaires with Pokemon. And just to go a little bit further into this, I'm going to keep this video from being half an hour long, like I want it to be, like I could make it. But me as a business, I'm doing high 7 figures in annual gross revenue. I'm doing well into the 6 figures in net revenue. So me as a business, let's do hypothetical again. I have 2 kids. Let's say that Catch 'em All Collectibles makes $306,000 a year net profit. If I take the full weight of that $306,000, and maybe I could elaborate this further in a future video, but if I'm making $306,000, that final $6,000 is taxed so highly. It's taxed at well, not quite the highest marginal rates for federal and state, but it's taxed at very high rates for federal and state. You know what my kids pay? When I take that $6K off the top, when I take my gross, my net being 306, and I say, hey, here's a 1099 or it would be a W-2. Here's a W-2 to my son. Here's a W-2 to my daughter for $3,000. That $6,000 comes off the top. Now, Catch 'em All Collectibles has profited $300,000, and I pay my high rates on that, marginal top down, that whole way. But my kids pay bottom up through the marginal rates. Their first $3,000 of income is entirely tax-free. So it only costs me $3,000 a year to save $3,000 a year. And I say pre-tax here. It saves me $3K pre-tax, but they're putting in post-tax money, Roth IRA. That actually might be something that somebody said in the comments when they very quickly said something mean and thumbs down and left. Dan, you're not even accounting for taxes here. Yes, I am, because this is a Roth IRA. They're putting in post-tax money that falls under their standard deduction, that falls under the free amount of income you can make in the 0% bracket. So my kids would be in the 0% bracket. I'd take $6,000 off the top of my net. I'd take $6,000 off my AGI, off my MAGI, my modified adjusted gross income. I'd take $6,000 off that I'd pay 40% effective tax on, and I'd put it into their buckets. We're going to start their buckets at a young age, and they're only going to be paying 0% on it. And then in the future, Roth IRA, they will never pay a penny in taxes on it. It's crazy. To me, the level of confidence at which I have in this being a thing is in the high 90s. For this to not be a thing, the economy as we know it, maybe it's the US dollar as we know it, things are happening in a bad way. Or Pokemon, and this is more touching on this video that we'll talk about. Pokemon might not exist in 50 years. The 500 richest companies in the world might change in the next 50 years, but this S&P 500, VTSAX, whatever I go with, they select, they update and they reselect their holdings based on what the economy, what the world is doing. What the S&P 500 was 10 years ago is different from today. There are companies worth billions of dollars that didn't exist 10 years ago. And when they become in the top 500, when they crack that top 500, if they grow from 500 to 400 to 200 to 1, you're getting all that growth. You're not getting the growth going from the billionth largest company to the 500th largest company. But once they crack that top 100, 500, yeah, you're along for the ride. And conversely, the same way, or inversely, I'm probably using the wrong word there. If and when a company falls out of favor, I was listening to a Warren Buffett thing recently where he and Charlie Munger were talking about like Sears. Sears was one of the biggest companies in the world in like the 90s. I remember Sears were everywhere. We'd buy appliances. They were like the Walmart of the 90s, basically, in a lot of ways. And when they fell from a top 10 company to a 100th company, 200, 300 company, you're losing money. You're losing money having that. But once they hit 500, once they drop out, it's like they've capped your losses there. You didn't ride them all the way down to zero. You only rode them from the 10th biggest company in the world down to the 500th biggest company in the world. And then they fell off. And that's, again, whether you're doing total stock market, S&P 500, that's just a little bit of conversation around what a mutual fund, what an index fund, what a passive investment is and looks like. We'll talk about. This is literally, I click a few buttons on Vanguard. I talk with my accountant. I talk with my payroll processor. This is like a couple hours across 14 years to set this up. This is like they click a couple buttons if they want to. And they could go buy a yacht. They could go buy a vacation house. They could go buy whatever they want. They could go buy investment balance of Pokemon if they want to when they turn 67. Tax-free. So, yeah. We'll talk about it again in the future video. But if theoretically I wanted to buy booster cases for them, booster cases of Destined Rivals, one, I don't love the entry price in this current environment. A year ago, buying SV1 through SV5 for sub 90, sub 100, I feel a lot better about it. But so more complex, more moving parts. You got to store them, you got to insure them. We'll talk about that in a future video. But like buying $3,000 worth of product costs more than $3,000. It has running costs and it has more frictional costs the whole way. And then I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But like, say that they say, I can't believe what we did for ourselves, putting in that hard work for Catch 'em All Collectibles while we live with Dad. Like, hey, maybe we want to continue working for the family business when we leave. Maybe we want to do our own thing, and we just want to save more. So it's like they saved $42,000 working for me, working for the family business while they lived with the family, and then they continue on. So that $42,000 grew into $2 million by 67. What could it become if they just continue adding $250 a month for the rest of their lives, or for the rest till 67? Now you're talking about over $3 million. And you might think like, wow, the first 15 years went to 2 million, and then you added 50 years worth of contributions, and it only went up by 1.2 million. Your contributions went from 42, which equated to $2 million. Now with $189,000 in contributions, it's only $3.2 million. Yes, that is the magic, the power of compounding, the eighth wonder of the world. If you flip it on its head, now it's like, hey, and there's so many great things out there. I'm going to change the starting balance to 0 in this instance because it's 0. Say we never started at 5. Well, what happens if instead of saving those first 14 years, $3,000 a year, what happens if we didn't start till they went out of the house? Let's say we make it happen at 18. So at 18, we make it happen, and then we're adding $250 a month from there every year. So instead of contributing $42,000, now they've contributed $147,000. Instead of having nearly $2 million, they only have $1.3 million. That's how much that extra time in the market versus timing the market. Time in the market is everything, because drip, because dividend reinvesting programs, because compounding. Evolution's booster boxes, Evolving Skies booster boxes, base set, legendary collection, EX Team Rocket returns. Yes, they have done amazingly, but you put away 6 boxes. And again, I'm touching on the future video a lot, but you put away 6 boxes of Destined Rivals. If you're lucky, 50 years later, it's still 6 boxes of Destined Rivals. It can only go down. It can't compound. It could get moldy. It could get wet. It could flood. It could be stolen. It could burn up. Those things can't really happen with securities. Those things can't really happen with equities. So yeah, that's just under 20 minutes is pretty good for a Dan video. Hopefully it all makes sense. Let me know in the comments below. Is Dan doing naughty tax things that he's not allowed to do? You can't do that. That's bad. I promise you, I am doing this. My kids are both on the payroll as of their 5th birthdays. They are going to have a very good start for having had that. They not into the content game yet. Maybe at some point maybe they'll get a raise because I start making Instagram posts with them, YouTube videos with them. I start having them hustle challenges at the events, whatever it may be. But $250 a month. Again, consult your CPA, consult like what a reasonable salary is. Maybe at 5 it's only $50 a month, and then it's scaling to $250 by 10 as long as they're actually doing it, as long as they're actually doing those things. There's certain times where I have to pull the old Happy Gilmore. Daddy, my fingers hurt. They're breaking down the boxes. They're putting them in 4 rows, 5 rows to send to PK and Ponga. I'm like, well, your back's going to hurt because you just pulled landscaping duty. And you know what? Your landscaping duty does not pay quite as well as ripping these packs, as breaking down these products. But yeah, that is my video for today. They are on the books as office assistants. Sometimes it's sweeping the floors in the office, straightening up the office. I mean, maybe mowing the lawn could be part of their chores, their job, their business. All depends on what you are in the business of doing. In the Pokemon business, I think it's a very low hurdle, very low bar to get your kids involved and to do big things for their financial futures. With Pokemon, kind of, but not the way that you may be expected from the title and thumbnail. With that, I appreciate you all watching as always. Give me a rocket emoji in the comments if you made it all the way. I appreciate you all watching, and I will catch you all later.